everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm LYNDALL Stout. This is our Best of 2020 show, and this week we're all here. Joining me is Dave Deacon, Curtis Hare, and Ed Barron. And if we could sum up 2020 in a nutshell, I think it would be adaptability. And like just about everyone else, we all shifted to work from home, sort of, in March.
We did make that jump from a centralized on-campus unit to actually working remotely. We divided up the equipment amongst all of us because in March, whenever it was declared that it was a pandemic, our boss, Dr. Kuhn, felt it was still important to get the news and information from the university out to the public. And so we were able to pause for 1 week, and then we were able to create a plan and get out across the state.
And what we saw, of course, was a lot of resiliency among ag producers as well around the state to keep things going.
Yeah, actually, my first story during the pandemic, and it's kind of wild that it was just a few months after the pandemic started, but it was in Beckham County at a wheat harvest. I went out with a producing family, and they never stopped. They had to get out there and they had to get combines out in the fields and get stuff cut because as it is with Oklahoma, it's the only thing that you're bound by is the weather. So they had to get out and get stuff done, and it turned out to be a really great story.
Let's take a look.
The pause button is pressed for wheat harvest on the Gamble family farm in Beckham County. The combine is throwing a fit again, but crankiness is expected for a machine of this age.
The combine we got now is 30 years old. But it's a good machine. It just takes repairs and everything. But
for Daryl and his co-operator/wife, Sherry, a short stoppage in harvest is on par for how these past few months have gone. The Gambles mainly raise cattle, cotton, and wheat, and all three have been hit hard in some way. The pandemic has affected their cattle prices, and a recent hot and dry spell has put a speed bump in cotton planting. But for wheat, they're seeing the impacts that a late, unexpected freeze had on their crop.
We had 2 or 3 of them, and what's amazed me, it didn't just affect our wheat, it affected our grass too. Our grass, it was set back a month coming out this year.
We also had one in the first week in May, and it was devastating on our wheat. Not totally devastating though. We are cutting it, and it's yielding decent.
Although it's been a rough few months, when you've been farming as long as the Gambles, you learn to take on the hard times with a smile and a simple phrase.
We will get through it.
With a little TLC, the combine is ready for cutting, and Sherry assumes her main job on the operation. A position she accepted years ago when they lost their entire cotton crop, forcing Daryl to shift his focus in replanting.
So he brought home that combine manual that night and said, "Do you think you could learn to run the combine?" And he handed me the manual and said, "There will be a test in the morning." So that's how I started running the combine, and I've ran it ever since.
The Gambles are at the age where it's time to hang it up. But like many farming families, walking away isn't easy.
Well, one thing is you enjoy it. We was raised out here, and I believe even though you retire, you don't want to quit totally. You want to keep going some.
But the most important reason they're keeping at it, family.
I never honestly felt like I would have that feeling that I wanted to come back and farm. We started coming out on the weekends, helping my family during the busy times, planting, harvesting, weaning calves, things like that. And my husband and I both started having the same feeling that we could see ourselves raising our kids this way.
So they left the big city life in Houston to raise their 2 kids, Emma and Ethan, on the family farm. And the kids love it. Daryl and Sherry will eventually leave their business to Lindsay. But they're in no rush because the work keeps them all together.
It's just very important to us. It's just brought such joy to our lives to have them back and to be able to watch our grandchildren grow up.
Lindsay is the 4th generation of Gambles to farm right here on Beckham County soil, making Ethan and Emma the 5th generation. And they've already got a few years of farming under their belt. Walk me through and tell me how long you've been farming.
I've been farming about 4 years. It's kind of fun for me, and I get to ride with my mom all the time.
You get to spend time with your family while helping them, and I like helping them a lot. And you just get to spend more time with your family than you would if we were in the city and they had to go to their jobs and everything. So farming, you just get to see your parents a lot more, and I like that.
While all Ethan talks about is tractors and being a farmer when he grows up, Emma thinks she'll pick a different career. Well, maybe.
And so I don't know. I mean, I'm just 11, so I don't really know, but I really think I'll probably end up being a pharmacist, but I don't know.
So it's a good feeling. This land is not my land. That's land, we own quite a bit of land, but it's not mine, it's their land, and I hope it's my grandkids' land. And I hope it stays in the generation for a long time, but who knows? We can't guarantee that, but that's my dreams.
And to see them reach the age where they're able to retire, it just thrills my heart. I can't wait to see the day when they just go off on their motorhome and they're gone for months at a time and they know that I'm here taking care of the farm.
But like the old combine that's still combing the fields, Daryl and Sherry still have a few more passes before the new generation takes over.
A lot of that wheat that's harvested in Oklahoma, of course, passes through the port of Catoosa. And Ed and I, pre-pandemic, got a chance to have a behind-the-scenes look at what goes on there.
Yeah, it was a really cool story to do. We got to ride on the some of the barges in the port of Catoosa and just see how everything operates there, and yeah, get a behind-the-scenes look at everything. And all these kids were there learning about it. It was a really great experience.
Let's take a look at that story.
Ask the typical person about Oklahoma exports, and a massive shipping port usually doesn't come to mind.
We've got about 2,500 acres here, 70 different businesses located here.
But the Tulsa Port of Catoosa is a busy place.
We typically ship about a little over 2 million tons of cargo through our port each year. 60% of that is agriculture products. Could be wheat, soybean, dry fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. We have a company that brings in tank barges full of molasses that's used for cattle feed. So a lot of agriculture connection.
In fact, the Port of Catoosa has been in operation for almost 50 years.
Our first barge came in January 21st, 1971. It was carrying 650 tons of newsprint. We don't ship a lot of newsprint today, but back then it was a very important commodity.
While the commodities may have changed, the Port of Catoosa has become an essential part of Oklahoma's economy with a worldwide impact.
Export is a very important part of Oklahoma's agriculture, and to have a means to be able to do that efficiently and effectively is really important for Oklahoma.
With the cost of food production increasing, the Port of Catoosa provides producers with a more cost-effective option for exports.
It's literally 1/5 the cost to ship wheat and soybean to Louisiana by barge versus truck. So farmers need that margin to make that profit.
With over 78,000 farms in Oklahoma, it takes a lot of manpower to ensure the port functions properly, which is why students from across the state have come to learn more about this important asset and its connection to agriculture.
I honestly didn't even know this was a place here that we had in Oklahoma. I didn't know we had a waterway that could push barges. I didn't know how much barges could hold and how many you could push with just one towboat.
Riley Smith, an FFA member from Oolaga, caught the attention of the port with her Facebook page, Ag It On, where she covers agricultural topics throughout the state.
The Port of Catoosa heard about that and they wanted someone to do their video for this career show. So they talked to my ag teacher, and Miss Smith got this thing for me where I came and videoed for them, and I put this video together to help show everyone that came to this like what this port's about, like some companies that work here and everything like that.
As demand for agricultural products increases, the port provides insight into career options for Oklahoma's future workforce.
Them having the opportunity to learn about the history of the place, the impact financially that it makes on the state, also getting to meet with some of the employers that are right here at the Port of Catoosa, this could spark their interest to them follow up and do more research, or maybe come in and talk to these companies once they turn 18 to get a job.
So they're the next generation. We need them to understand why it's important and why they need to protect it and use it.
We, of course, want to thank the Port of Catoosa and the whole team there for having us out. That was really a great trip.
Yeah, and this time of year, it's like gratitude is something we're always giving around, but I think especially this year with all the hard work that producers and ranchers across the state were doing, that they deserve a lot of gratitude this year.
For sure. And speaking of gratitude, a word from Dr. Tom Kuhn.
When we face challenging times like we have this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's really tempting for people to kind of narrow their focus and really zero in on themselves and their immediate family, make sure that they take care of that, and really kind of forget the rest of the world. And yet that's not what's happened around here. That's not what's happened across the state of Oklahoma. I am especially pleased with our colleagues who have stepped up and gone beyond that immediate reaction of caring for selves in order to care for the people around them. The extension staff and faculty across the state have been tremendous in adapting a constantly changing scenario, and yet always following through to make sure that their programs are getting out to the people who need them. Still living up to our mission of helping Oklahomans apply the kind of research-based information that we're generating and putting it to use in their lives. Our research staff also have adapted and tried to make sure that they continue to carry out the field work and the laboratory work that needed to get done to serve Oklahomans, but they did it in a different way. Of course, here on campus we saw the same thing. Students adapted, faculty adapted, staff adapted, and we were successful in having face-to-face instruction in the fall, done differently, and yet still we lived up to our mission. So I'm especially pleased and proud of my colleagues who have made those adjustments to help make sure we deliver on our mission. In this year of gratitude, we began the year with a tremendous gratitude for the Ferguson Family Foundation as we announced their generous gift to help us ensure the future of the college and help us build a new building for our full division. That gratitude carries through to today. And we're especially grateful for not only the donations that the Ferguson Family Foundation made and others have made to this particular campaign, but the many ways that people across Oklahoma and really across the United States show their gratitude for the work of Oklahoma State University. So at this time of year, it's especially appropriate to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the many people who have helped us get through this year, and especially thank you to my colleagues who have stood up and delivered under extremely difficult circumstances. Thank you, and have a happy holiday season.
Growing up in agriculture was a true blessing. I actually grew up on a registered dairy farm in Southwest Missouri, and so I always knew that I wanted to continue that and pursue a degree in agriculture. But the dairy farm really is why I chose to come to Oklahoma State. Technology is kind of an evolutionary thing, and we've seen that so much within the dairy industry. We have a robotic milking system. That is something that's really changed a lot of dairymen's lives and kind of really set the scene of things within the dairy industry.
There are a lot of farms that are working with these robots. That means we need feed advisors that understand the concept. We need veterinarians that know how to work in these facilities. We need all these different kids that are going to be adults, that are going to be the future of this industry, to have an idea of how to work differently.
The robot gives us a unique opportunity to highlight that we have this new cutting edge technology, that if you want to work with De La Valle or with companies like De La Valle providing support, developing new programs, doing IT, anything like that, we have that available here for those students to get hands-on learning experience. It's a whole new aspect, and not a lot of people get to work with a robot at all. So right now, it's for students coming in, it's a great asset.
But it's also going to give students the ability to learn new skills about technology, about dairy farming, and about dairy herd management, both with a robotic milking system and the traditional way, as we still milk animals in the parlor. So it really gives students the best of both worlds, and gives them the practical and applicable skills that they are going to be able to take into the future, into any career that they choose to pursue in the industry, because we are offering a unique and one-of-a-kind experience for those students, setting them up to be lifelong leaders in the industry.
This is SUNUP's Best of 2020 show, and we're looking back at some of our favorite stories. Another big issue this year was rural broadband in Oklahoma and a lot of other states.
A lot of the schools across the state had to go virtual, and in doing that, rural broadband became a major issue because a lot of the students didn't have the opportunity to have that online experience initially, but a lot of the schools have made that possible. Speaking of schools, Dr. Brian Whitaker here at OSU has really been passionate about that for years.
Yeah, it's one of the main things that he's focused on and that he's working with not just schools, but just rural communities across the state. And it's a major issue here. I didn't really realize that. You kind of think in 2020, like everybody has access to internet, but it's a really big problem. And then you couple that with a pandemic and it's even worse.
Let's take a look now at the piece that you've put together on this issue.
The day before the start of a new school year can be stressful. But in a pandemic, the rough waters Oklahoma educators are setting sail on are definitely uncharted.
Our community itself, we've had cases, but we're not seeing the spikes that some of the larger areas do. And part of that, I think, is because we are so rural that we're a little bit separated from some of those issues.
STACY WOMACK is the superintendent of Pawnee schools. Although COVID cases are low and her school district is as prepared as it can be for in-person classes, she knows all that could change to distance learning. Virtual learning has its challenges, but for areas like Pawnee County, it's even more difficult and nearly impossible for some families.
Internet access in those areas, incredibly limited. We tried multiple hotspots over the summer, trying to figure out what could we provide to those families that are in those locations. Nothing. We have areas that no hotspot provided any type of internet connection for those areas. And it's a significant number of kids. We're not talking one or two families, we're talking significant numbers of families.
For rural communities, direct fixed access to high-speed internet, or broadband, is either lacking or non-existent, and the coronavirus pandemic is compounding the issue. Many families rely on cellular services to set up hotspots for connectivity. But even in 2020, cell service is not always a given in these areas.
Yeah, I think people that more in the urban areas take for granted their internet access, and they don't realize we're still struggling with internet access out here in the rural areas, having it available or having it fast enough.
For Pawnee County Extension educator Rick Clovis and Extension Director Trinity Brown, it took a pandemic to reveal the lack of broadband or hotspot availability in their area.
When the pandemic started and we had to start working from home, we started to realize the issues that we had with internet.
I mean, we keep a landline in our house because even our cell phone, half the calls are going to get dropped or they're going to be cutting in and out.
I don't have internet at my home, so I was having to hotspot off of my phone, and then having a child that was home from college and she was trying to do her day classes as well, and we struggled with that.
Cellular connection, most of the networks that we are dealing with, we actually have a really good signal here. The FCC actually says that about 98% of everyone has access to broadband, but if you look at the rural versus urban split, it's pretty significant, and in Oklahoma, it's a lot worse.
Brian Whitaker is a rural development specialist for Oklahoma State University Extension. He says only about 61% of Oklahomans in rural communities have broadband access. As this map shows, counties in dark brown have at least 75% of the population going without high-speed internet, and Pawnee County is one of them.
Everyday life is absolutely affected by not having good broadband connection. So if you think about everything you do on a day-to-day basis, you search for a restaurant online, you file a job application online, you do your banking online. It's actually been shown to affect where businesses are going to put new locations.
Limited to no internet is just another issue both rural Oklahoma and rural America face. But it's an issue that hasn't gone unnoticed. Recently, the state Senate appointed Dr. Whitaker to the new Rural Broadband Expansion Council, a group specifically organized to solve this issue.
So, I really appreciate that the legislature is looking into this and realizes that this is an issue. And we actually just had our first meeting 2 days ago for the Rural Broadband Expansion Council, so we're still kind of laying the groundwork.
Access is the main problem for rural areas, but it's not so much physical accessibility as it is affordability.
We might have internet, but there's families out there that just can't afford it. And that's a big challenge, not even during this pandemic, but just everyday life.
The number one reason why a lot of households don't have internet access at home is not because there's not a line running by their house, it's because they can't afford $60, $70, $80 a month for this connection. Low-income households realize the importance of a broadband connection. They know just how disadvantaged they are when they can't have one.
For STACY, she's confident her schools can adapt to whatever happens. Using CARES funding, her district bought additional Chromebooks and set up hotspots in the school parking lots in the event of a closure. Whatever it takes to make sure her students and their families know they matter.
Even though we're rural, our kids deserve the same education. So I don't want them to look at having a rural education as being a hindrance, but rather something that provides them not only with the tools they need, but additional tools such as that sense of family and belonging that I feel like only comes in a rural district.
The hard part is almost done. A few more outlines and a couple of strips of tape, then all that's left is to flesh out the canvas. For the past 3 weeks, the ladies at the Covington Senior Center in Garfield County have been meticulously crafting barn quilts, and they're down to their last one.
Same red as on the, maybe it
A barn quilt is a painted picture of a quilt block. And we made ours to represent this area.
Zoe Bowles is a board member for the Senior Center. After some repairs to the old building a few years ago, she says an opportunity arose.
And then last year we had this wall painted. So, and it looked so plain and bare to us. We decided that we would like to get on the quilt trail, the barn quilt trail, with others in the area.
The Oklahoma Barn Quilt Trail is an agritourism attraction that ranges across the state. Once that bare wall is covered with these beautiful images, the building, which also serves as the historical center, will be registered on the trail.
And we've had lots of fun with it too. And maybe it might bring some tourists to our historical town.
I've been working with the seniors here and their group to do barn quilts, and they chose to do different things that talk about the history of the town, because this is also the museum.
With a rich history in oil and a long tradition in cattle and wheat production, the designs were chosen to represent that. While bringing in visitors to the center is a goal, the main purpose is to show pride in the history of Covington.
To beautify and also to share the history with passerbys.
Show pride in our community, and we just think it'll draw some interest, spruce up Main Street. We'd like to do that.
Zoe hopes other buildings on Main Street follow their lead and start their own barn quilt projects. But until then, the Senior Center will be the best looking old building on the block.
You know what this year has been? This story was just a really nice break from the craziness that is 2020.
Definitely. It was great to see. Well, we're out of time for stories, but we did allow enough time for another favorite this time of year, which is, of course, our 2020 outtakes, what happens behind the scenes when we're producing SUNUP. We are wishing you and your family a very happy and safe holiday season, and we will see you next time.
It does.
Perfect. And me.
Yay, Joe!
Gotta sing.
Waiting.
I could do that. Man, I'm slacking on the job.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm LYNDALL STOUT. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, the last time we spoke with our forage system specialist, Dr. Alex Rocatelli, we were talking about seeding fields. Oh crap! Sorry, seeding fields, seeding wheat into Bermuda. Or prepping. I said, Daryl's face is really dark.
Well, I think
it's my George Hamilton tan.
A federal court ruling earlier this month.
Oh, sorry, I gotta cover it. That's what he always does.
I'm gonna club you over the head with this.
We're joined now by Extension Specialist Roger Saws to talk a little bit.
Lindsay is the 4th generation of Gambles to farm right here on, let's see what that looks like.
Today I thought I'd share a little bit of information.
Like, and then step forward and back and turn and turn.
Yeah, try not to move too much. You could sway and stuff, but don't like walk at all.
Oh, because he's got a tight
You're
shot on you.
talking to a Brazilian Italian, not to move. It's impossible.
He's born to move.
If we cut my hands, I cannot speak.
Well done, well done. Well, I guess we could.
I got a big one.
County fairs are definitely a rite of passage this time of year, but because of the pandemic,
Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup. We'll do this again tomorrow. I play trombone.
Did you? I played the trumpet.
Really? Okay.
Dang.
There you
we
go.
should get together and let's don't.
Oh, sun in my eyes.
Yeah, sunshine.
Alrighty.
In my face.
So the
Here's Sunup's Dave Deacon and our shoot.
Sheep that required, excuse me, I looked at that car.
Okay. Is cotton still on that like slow, steady uptrend, or is it kind of leveling off or diving down at all?
China, they leveled off several weeks ago. China.
Cotton.
Oh, cotton. Yeah.